Welcome to Live at the Blue Box. It is July 11th, 2015. This is our, what did we determine? Our quarterly, our bi-monthly?
It's a marathon is what this is.
Yeah,
this
it feels like it. Oh, this is nothing. Wait till the real marathon. It's 12 hours long on August 1st. Anyway, this is our micro-con, B2C2, SDC2, MW by NW. Or we'll just call it a micro-con. All right, we'll just go with that. But our third and final guest of the evening, we thought we try to have different people that you'd find at Comic-Cons. So we've had webcomic people, we've had artists, we've had writers, we've had cosplayers. We've had Scott. This is the first time we've had a podcaster.
Woohoo!
And I'm going to be teaching him how to talk on the mic.
Yeah, I know. What is this thing in front of me? I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do with it.
So tonight we have with us Imran. How do you say your last name?
Javed.
Javed.
Yeah, I like to go by one name, Imran, like Cher, Madonna, Prince. Just keeps things easy.
All right. Yeah. And Imran, what is your podcast?
Well, I'm a co-host of the Jock and Nerd podcast that you guys can find at jockandnerd.com. The Jock was actually, I got cards and stickers. I'll hand them out. The Jock was unfortunately unavailable, or he would have came with me. I think he's at a wedding or something.
I couldn't talk to the Jock, so...
No, yeah, neither can I, but that's why I have him on, so he can explain Jock-type things to our listeners and to me.
Does he whip pennies at you or anything?
Sometimes. The reason that it's the Jock and Nerd and not Nerd and Jock is because I lost to the Jock in arm wrestling. And so now it's in his contract that the Jock always comes first. You know how they are.
You know how they are. Yeah. Beating up on the nerds.
Yeah.
So, Imran, you're a podcaster. Here's what I want to do with this.
Okay.
Number one, the reason that we met Imran. Now, we didn't meet you at a Comic-Con, but I know that we will see you at Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah.
The reason we connected here, Martha, my wife, and I were on a podcast called ProfitCast, where they actually talked to us about how to make profit with a podcast.
Great
and we
show.
talked about how you don't make profit. We make nothing.
Yeah.
We have a donation hat up at the front. Otherwise, we make nothing. We view profit as giving back to people, giving them, like, fostering creativity and stuff. And this struck a chord with a lot of people. And one of them that reached out to us was Imran.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that show, and I loved what you said. And Brian's show is kind of about the different ways you can profit, but it really, we feel the same way. The profit to me is connecting with listeners, is turning people on to comic books, is giving people recommendations, and now they're enjoying a new book that they maybe never would have picked up or watched something they never did, and just the joy of putting our passion out there.
It's putting your passion out there.
Yeah.
Well, so he reached out and he was like, I loved it.
Yeah.
We want to maybe get into doing some live stuff. I just have some questions. So I called him. He did a little fanboying, and boom.
Yeah, I was like, I'll come down. This is fun.
So here's what I want to do. I want to find out a little bit about you, but I also want to give you an opportunity to ask some questions, because when we do panels, one of the panels that we do a lot of panels at Comic-Cons, and one of them we do is about basically podcasting and journalism. And we get a lot of questions about what is podcasting? How do you get into it? Like some of the nuts and bolts. And we know this stuff. And you, as a newer podcaster, I bet have a few questions.
Well,
not quite as simple as that.
Yeah.
But I bet you do.
Oh, always.
Before we do that, you settle down. I want to get it from you. How long have you been podcasting?
Just under 4 months.
4 months. How many episodes have you?
23 episodes.
Wow.
I get a little obsessive with things when I get into things. So literally, from the day my co-host Anthony, we worked together, and basically what happened was we would go to the comic book store every Wednesday at lunch at work.
Okay.
And we have our pull list, and in the car ride, we would talk about the shows of the week and the books we read, and then one day he's like, hey, we should do a podcast. Because we listen to these podcasts, like It's All Connected, the Flash podcast, comic book podcast, and these conversations in the car, I was like, this is the show. We should just record this.
Yes.
And so from the day he said we should do a podcast, I had everything set up. We had a show up live in less than 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks from that day, we had done our first show. It was up. Everything was done. Because I totally geeked out and I got obsessed.
I get it. When Martha and I decided it, I'll tell you this story. We were Under the Dome. It was the first season, okay? So Martha and I are sitting on the couch. Under the Dome starts up. it's maybe 3 minutes into it, and Martha says, let's do a podcast about this. Because we'd already been exploring it, and I'd already done a couple of shows, and she and I had done a couple things for someone else. And she said, let's do this.
So that's when you guys started with Under the Dome?
Under the Dome. So what we did, we thought up the name right there. We're like, Chester's Mill Report.
There you go.
We didn't know if the show was going to be good or bad.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
It's still up to
It gets
what?
bad.
Yeah, it's still up in the air whether it's good or
boy.
bad. But it's like a guilty pleasure to watch.
Well, yeah, that second season, have you ever had a root canal? Very similar, only a little more painful.
That's it.
Yeah, watching the second season, I felt like an abused person. I actually had Stockholm Syndrome. I was loving it, but it was my captor and abusing me.
Yeah. That's kind of how I felt about Gotham.
But
the
I
whole
loved
season.
it. But I loved it. It's good to me. Yeah.
I
I had to wear long sleeve shirts to hide the bruises. Oh,
What are you, Ike Turner
that's
over
right.
here? What's going
Is that
on?
the first boo of the night? I'm usually get them early and often.
I'm sorry, baby. I love you. I didn't mean to do that to you. I love you.
Right. Yeah. That's right. So we were sitting on the couch, and we said this. We bought a Roland MP3 recorder, which ironically one of the characters this season
It was
is
in the last
using
episode.
on Under the Dome.
That's the exact one.
It's awesome.
That was crazy.
And we recorded it, and then we didn't know how to get it from there into the computer.
Then what do you do? Yeah.
And then we didn't know how to get it on iTunes or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was that same thing. It was like from the minute of deciding, between 8 o'clock and midnight that night, we had a show.
Man, so like just, 2.5 years ago, you go from that to 80 show network right here? It's amazing.
No, we did that, like, that was kind of overnight. I was just explaining this to my good friend Chris over here. When we started, we designed it, like you're trying to build a show, right?
Yep.
Martha and I right away said, we want to design a network.
Okay, yeah.
And
No,
we
you're
said,
building
okay,
that. Yeah.
someday we'll have like 5 shows.
Yeah.
Okay, this was the
5.
dream.
Yeah.
And we said we're gonna design these phases, and it's gonna take about 3 years, but we'll get to phase 4 by about 3 years.
Wow, you had like a Marvel Cinematic Universe
we
plan there.
did,
Yeah.
we did. She didn't like that because she's not into it, but I was totally like, I'm Wolverine, and this is the
Phase-
Marvel Universe.
phase 1.
Even though he's not in the Marvel Universe, it's a different. We're not
Yeah,
gonna get
it's
into
all
that.
right. Yeah.
Anyway, we hit phase 4. 3 months into it.
Wow. That
sucks.
That
For
accelerated
me
quickly.
and for her.
Yeah.
I was at one point. I was editing all the shows. I edited 39 shows in a week.
What? You were editing all the shows?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I now a lot of our people jump in. They edit. I
That's
still
good.
do all the elements and stuff, but
That's
it's
good.
it's a big help. But then I also made the decision that every show should have original artwork. Do you do that on yours?
I put the. So what I'll do is I'll put the number, the episode number, and if we're doing a movie, I'll put the movie. And I've had fun with some of them, like the Daredevil review. If you see here, I drew the cartoon heads of us. So on the Daredevil review, I'm the red Daredevil, and he's Black Ninja Daredevil. And then Age of
Nice.
Ultron, I made us Hawkeye and Captain America. We're gonna do Terminator, and I'll Terminator us up for the artwork. So it's fun to have fun with the artwork. But I can feel your pain because much like all jocks do, the nerd does all the work on the jock and nerd show. He literally just comes in, sits down, records, and leaves. And I'm like, okay, thanks, I'll get this up. See you
Don't
later.
beat me up, sir. Don't throw pennies
So,
at me.
but so really, the jock is the
I
strength.
made the decision right away, like by episode 2. Well, you know what? We should differentiate ourselves and have original art on every episode. That was before we had 80 shows
Yeah,
to
try and
have
keep
to
up
do
with
it
that.
for.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Very ambitious though. Good.
It's
good
ridiculous.
work.
So
Yeah.
every show has it. If you go to the website, it's got all that. It's
That-
ridiculous.
and it looks better. Like it's
It is. It's visually cool, and
Yeah.
it adds a different element to
Yeah.
it. But podcasting, there's a couple elements to it, and you're experiencing this. It's 4 months into it, you're experiencing it. At first, it's recording what you're doing, and
Yeah.
I tell everybody, if you can have a conversation, turn on a recorder.
Yeah.
And do it.
But pressing the button is
passionate
very
about it.
important.
Don't go into it thinking I'm going to get rich and I'm going to talk about something I don't know about.
Yeah, no, it's not, and it's not about the money. It's
No.
When I found this, like I've been listening to podcasts for 10 years. I've aware podcasts since 2005. Listened to Adam Curry, Daily Source Code, Dawn and Drew, Coverville, Brian Ibbett, early stuff.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do a show back then, but when it got to manually putting your feed together, I was like, I'm out. No, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I wanted someone to do it with because I like working off someone else.
Right.
It's a better dynamic.
Absolutely.
And so when my it was all leading up to that day when he's like, "Hey, we should do a podcast." It was all there in my head, and it was like
finally!
boom. And I realized that it's everything I love to do. It's graphic design. I'm actually an illustrator and designer by trade.
Oh,
so
cool.
I love making websites. I love drawing. I love audio engineering. I was a sound man in the 90s. I've been in bands. I play guitar.
It's kind of your whole thing has led to this.
And then it was just, I realized it was another creative output it's really direct. You don't have to wait. You don't have to draw sketches and refine it. It's just you record it, done, and it's literally available to the world instantly.
Well, and podcasting right now is kind of like the Wild West.
Yeah.
There are not the regulations. People have not gotten their fingers into it yet. And believe it or not, I think iTunes is doing a good job of keeping it that way.
Yes.
I hope it continues because otherwise, welcome to McDonald's. Would you like fries with that will be the next phrase I say. No, I'll never work there. And I will not offer you fries. Welcome to Whole Foods. Would you like organic fries with that?
There you go. But there's no rules. That's what I love.
There's
literally people, like, we've had guests on the show, and they're like, can I say? I'm like, dude, you can do whatever you want. There's no rules. Not many people are listening anyways, so have fun.
See, now, that's another thing is, for those of you that are, like, interested in this, thinking about getting into it, what podcasting is, a lot of people in their head think of it as like, oh, it's radio on the internet. But that's not what this is.
Close, but not really.
If you want a real definition for it, it's really new media.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to look at it. It is a new media. We're making up the rules that eventually will be kind of the rules, kind of the structure to it.
But there's so many applications. Like, it is a great
But it can be
storytelling
anything.
medium.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about it with Paul. How take a book, read a chapter.
That is a great idea. He should do that.
And
Like,
do your
that would
thing.
be a great show.
Could you tell I was working him?
Yeah.
Podcast number 81.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Wobbit.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we just picked one up like that. It's a science fiction book called 10,000 Dawns.
Ooh.
Yeah, by James Wilder. We had him out here. He is the Doctor Who poet. He's written a poem for every single episode of Doctor Who.
Wow. Well, you heard of
that's
Scott
ambitious.
Siegler, too. That's how he kind of started. He would do chapter at a time of his stories on his podcast and audio, and then it got huge, and now he sells books, and he's a huge author.
Yeah.
All starting from
All
his
because
podcast.
of podcasting.
Yeah.
But if you go into it thinking that's going to happen, guess what?
No.
It won't.
No, like all arts, any kind of artistic
You just
endeavor,
gotta love it, man.
You got to do it for the love of it, and you got to do it for a long time without even expecting any kind of ROI for a long time.
So you,
Yes, sir.
as a 4-month-old podcaster, what kind of things would you want to know from me?
Well, I mean, it's tough. This live stream setup's great. Like, I really came down. First of all, I was so excited to hear about Podcaster in, like, local Elgin. I was like, Elgin, Illinois. Like, I gotta check these people out.
Well,
and,
this is unique. When we started
yeah.
this a year ago, I had only heard of maybe 2 other podcasts that did their things live.
Yeah.
It's still an uphill battle. I mean, the people in this room get it, but a lot of people still don't. They don't even know what podcasting is, let alone doing it in a.
Well, you have a benefit of a great
pad.
location because a lot of people will do live stuff. You could do live from your home, literally.
Right.
But to have a location with an audience. So we recently did a live show at a comic book store in Niles, Pastime Comics.
Oh, cool.
They had invited us down. They're like, hey, why don't you do a show here? That's our local comic book store we go to every week. So we were very new. They helped promote us. We get to the day. We set up. We're all there. I bought like a banner and all this stuff. Nobody shows up. So, and I was like, okay. Luckily, though, there was this independent comic book publishing company there shooting a video for their Kickstarter.
Okay.
They're called Unshaven Comics. They were friends of the guy who works there.
Okay.
And they do this book called The Sammernauts. It's like this crazy book. So luckily they were there. Without any preparation, I just interviewed them, and the show was awesome. It was a great interview with independent comic book creators.
That's the key to the whole thing. Is
Yeah.
just get the good content.
Yeah.
We've done it to a room of almost nobody.
Sure.
And you know what? At the end of the day, we listened back and we're like, "Wow, this was a good show."
You know what?
Yeah, you like the energy and you want people to have fun and everything. I mean, we do this because number one, we like to be with everybody here, and we literally know almost everybody in this room at this point. And we love the Blue Box. We love to support them. I mean, there's a lot of
It's
good.
a great tie-in.
But you know what? At the end of the day, it's all that positive energy is what we're really after.
So I do have questions, actually, because what
Give
happened?
it to me.
What happened was when I started this show. So our show is about geek culture. About if you go back to the beginning, we review episodes of Arrow, Gotham, Flash, what's the other show? Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., of course.
Yes.
And then it was a great way to kind of warm up in the beginning because the content was there. And so we would just talk about the show. We didn't have to worry about, now when the show's ended, we're like, oh boy, what do we do now?
Do?
You know what? That was the best thing that happened because now we are playing with our format. We do movie reviews. I do really geek comic book reviews, try to turn people on. We've even done a UFC preview because the Jock, somebody called us out. They're like, do you guys ever talk about any Jock stuff? And we hadn't, but it was all nerd stuff. So I had Anthony, my co-host, give us a preview of the fight that's tonight, UFC 189. And I was asking him questions. And that was a really fun show. So I got obsessed with podcasts about podcasting. And there's tons of those. However, they're all fixated. They're mostly for the business entrepreneur on fire, blah, 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 make a business, take your startup to blah, you know. So there isn't really a geek podcast about podcasting in the geekosphere kind of thing. So my question would be, how do you cultivate a geek community that really gets involved with your show and interacts?
Okay.
I mean, we have a speak pipe, we got a Hotmail line.
We got to define this a little bit better, and I'll see if I can answer it. Are you saying for Jock and Nerd, how do we cultivate an audience, or how do we build a culture around it?
I want to build a community. I want to build the Jock and Nerd empire.
Okay. There is no one answer.
Okay.
Okay? This is what I would say, obviously, because I'm going to say it. First of all, you want to make sure you have your social media kicking. Have Twitter.
Yep.
Have Facebook. Facebook doesn't do anything.
No.
Don't put your money into it. Don't put your efforts into it.
Okay.
Have a space.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to know.
That thing where boost your things and pay $5 a day.
I heard the ads work better. Not even the ads? Facebook ads?
Don't do it.
Okay.
Don't do it.
All right.
You can spend your money elsewhere.
Okay.
Get a Tumblr page.
Really?
And treat it well by putting artwork and doing, I can explain that later. Tumblr is another one. Tumblr, Twitter, those are the two. I would put most of my efforts towards Twitter, a little bit towards Facebook.
Interesting.
And I would I would put Tumblr just under Twitter.
Because you can have your auto post to Tumblr as each episode comes out.
Right. If you do that, make sure you include artwork on it. Now, the other thing is you can get, there is a website where you can get a free forum. Ironically, I think it's got a very ironic name. I think it's freeforums.com. Imagine that. And with free forums, I think that's the name of it.
Okay.
Watch, it's something like expensiveforums.com,
Well,
and they're
you
free.
can Google it.
Then I look like a boob up here.
Forums are still a thing, though?
Yeah. Yes, they are. Now, we have a forum set up, and we have forums for every show, and nobody goes to it.
Okay.
But I have been told, like one of our podcasters said, man, it was shut down about a year ago. There was this forum. I haunted it. He said tons of people used it. We just haven't had people actively in it, and I don't have the time to be actively in it. If I was, that's a way to build community.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is communicate with people. When somebody tweets to you, tweet back, hey, man, thanks for following me.
Sure.
When we were in Cleveland, we have a fan. His Twitter handle is Lost in Cleveland. So when we were going through Cleveland, I remembered his thing on here, and I wrote to him, hey, man, I start everything with hey, man, apparently. We're in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And he wrote back, he was like, oh, man, my stomping grounds.
That's
hey,
awesome.
try this. And I said, yeah, we're going to this coffee shop. It was like
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Building community.
All right.
You go to the Comic-Cons, you're walking through Artist Alley, guess what? You're going to run into those people.
Yeah.
And that's the other way, is get to know the people in Artist Alley, make connections there, share stuff on Facebook, and drag them everywhere you go like we do. But the other thing that will happen then is their community becomes your community too.
Yeah, that's good. And then, I've already been on another show. We've made a couple of podcast buddies. There's a podcast in England, a movie podcast, that we've kind of been having a really long conversation, podcast back and forth.
Okay.
And it's been tons of fun. They listen and they talk about us on their show.
Cool.
And then I
That's
have people come
great.
on. So we're trying to get a lot of...
We usually just absorb the other show.
You just swallow them up. All your base belong to us.
Yeah, no. The way we do it, she just said we're like the Blob. We are like the Blob.
Yeah.
But the way we do it is when we say we absorb, we actually don't.
Okay.
What we do is we bring you in, you talk about community.
Yeah.
We have a private Facebook group Don't tell.
I was going to ask about Facebook groups.
We have a private one for our podcasters.
Okay.
So if you're a podcaster for us,
I
or
see,
a
for the
blogger for
host.
us, or a videographer for us, or whatever, you get in this group. And we have a thing in there where we say you can have conversations off of it, but let's keep it to podcasting and show and blog talk in here. And when we bring in a new show, like if we said, hey, Jock and Nerd, would you like to be with us? You still have your RSS feed. You still have your thing. But on iTunes, you switch the RSS feed so it shows in our iTunes provider page.
In the network page, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's cool.
Everything is still yours. You still own the show. If you say,
yeah.
you know what, we want to branch off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just get off the Facebook group then and some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But what's
I like
amazing
that.
is the people in our group, we have a woman in our group who has 2.5 million followers on Tumblr.
What?
2.5 million.
What's her show?
We have 60.
Oh.
Not 60 million. It's
Just 60. Oh, 60 million.
When
I
we
was
were
gonna
talking about triple digits. We're almost in the bottom
Who is
two
the-
digits below the point.
Who is this Tumblr audience? Who are the Tumblr
Not
people?
for her show. It's for what she does.
Oh.
She does one called Super Wholock Junkie, and she just posts stuff about Doctor Who and Sherlock and
Oh, I
those
see.
shows that people have a little interest in.
Yeah.
And Supernatural.
Wow.
We have Twitter experts in there. We have social media directors. We have professional writers.
Wow.
We have professional everything
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know it because they're like us doing
There's
these
people-
podcasts.
yeah, that's great.
But then you get to know them and in that private group. So you want to build community, you get in. See, this is a big debate with podcasters. Do we get in a network or not?
Yeah.
Well, our network, sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these are all
CBS
great
network?
geek.
No, they're going to own you
but
and do
have,
stuff.
Yeah, you have great geek shows here, and it's a whole theme. You can easily see the theme
Yeah,
of the network.
And so,
Clear.
how do you build community? You just get involved. You don't have to join the network, but that's
Yeah.
a way to connect with podcasters.
Yeah.
We absorbed one called Nerds Domain, and they now they're going to have 9 shows, is it, or 7? They have 7, I think.
Wow.
They're a network.
Oh, you're absorbing another network now.
Yeah, but they wanted to be part of it. They wanted to be part of it.
Yeah.
No, it's every time
No, you know what? Everything helps everyone else, though, is the
Well,
thing.
yeah, and he just said, I really want to be part of your thing. We want to get absorbed. You're like, why? And he's going. So the first day we put him on our Facebook group. They're not even on the network yet.
Yeah.
Put him on our Facebook group. Matt wrote me immediately and said, I have learned more today by exploring that Facebook group than all the information I've learned about podcasting before.
Wow.
It is.
Yeah,
And
I
they
love
started
that.
a Star Trek podcast that's not even posted yet. And I've guested on it. Like 3 of our other people have guested. One of our guys that's guesting on it, get this, they didn't even know this. He wrote a book about Bones, or a short story about Bones, that is considered one of the top 10 stories ever written about Dr. Bones.
Wow. It's
like a Star Trek phenomenon.
Wow.
And he's a podcaster for us who doesn't talk about Star Trek. So they were like, can you
Oh,
be
he
on?
doesn't even have a Star Trek show.
He's
does
like,
he?
oh, I'd love to. I can talk about early Star Trek. They're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you're that guy.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Yeah, all right.
All right, time's getting short. Questions?
Let's see. How about, what about a Facebook group for the listening community? Like basically forums versus comments on your webpage posts versus Facebook groups. I've seen a lot of podcasts have luck with
We have our own Facebook pages for every show.
Okay.
Some of them the community is kind of active with. I'll tell you what's better. Get the one for your show. Get Jock and Nerd. You'll do fine with that. Try to join. This is for anybody. Anybody that wants to be like a journalist in the culture, whatever the culture.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. If you're going into some form of media in some type of like passionate thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make a sentence out of that.
No, I know where you're going.
Look on Facebook for groups. So like I do the Nuff Said podcast, which is all about Marvel and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I joined like
All
10
those,
different
yeah.
Marvel groups. Make mine Marvel
Yeah.
and Marvel this and Marvel that. And I just joined them. Just join them.
Okay.
And then post once in a while.
Yeah,
And
that's yeah.
And
You
then
got to interact.
eventually, at some point, you'll be able to put on there, hey, I wrote a blog piece about that. I thought the community might like it. We interviewed Brett Dalton, Agent Ward
Yeah,
from Agents of
yeah.
S.H.I.E.L.D.
Really?
And I
Wow.
put it on all of them. I said, hey, the community might be interested. You know that one blew up because
hell
everybody
yeah.
in those groups
Yeah, who
was
doesn't want
like,
to hear
"Whoa."
from Agent
And
Ward?
you want to hear the most interesting thing about it? So we have a Grimm podcast called Monroe's Comfy Sweater because Monroe wears comfy sweaters on the show.
What? Wait, what? What is it?
Yeah, Monroe's Comfy Sweater.
Okay.
And they joined a Grimm group, And Blair told me afterwards, she said,
great.
I was in there and I was checking around and I asked a question because we put all these efforts into Twitter and we put all these efforts into iTunes and all this. And she put a question out there, how many people are on Twitter? And the group had like 6,000 people in it, like a huge group. She said, nobody used Twitter.
Wow.
Now, Twitter's huge, but nobody in this group used Twitter. Most of them didn't use iTunes. And she went, oh, so maybe we should tell you guys that you can get it on SoundCloud, and their numbers went like that.
Well, that was another question is, do you feel like we still, as podcasters, we still have to constantly educate the public, even
Absolutely.
if they're listening and they're subscribed?
What do you guys think? Are you getting educated about podcasting a little bit? Yeah, you feel like, it's good
information. How many people listen to podcasts here? I'm really curious. Any of you guys?
Other than the ones you're
You guys listen to podcasts? Anyone? Nobody? See? Right here. You
Scott
do?
only likes to be on them.
I heard that. Yeah, Welcome to Night Vale, I heard, is a really good show. Yeah. See, that's interesting. I still feel it's been a really slow maturity line in the last 10 years.
We're not at the tipping point. We're not even close to the tipping point.
No, it's still, I think the bubble, it's about to blow up, but it still needs to get there.
No. If it was a glass of milk, we've had a couple of bubbles, but it hasn't blown up yet.
No.
No, we're not even close.
It's still a great time. I wish I started
Cereal,
5 years ago.
Cereal was a bubble that went boop like that.
It was
That's
a little,
about as big as
it was
went.
a little.
And that's probably the biggest penetration there's been.
Absolutely.
Wow, my English is slipping fast. Okay, time for one last question. Anything?
Okay. Do you guys have Patreon? What do you think about Patreon?
Patreon, interesting. We have Patreon.
Okay.
So Patreon is a way that you can donate for things. This is not a layup that he's doing for me here. I'm going to explain it to the audience because we do something different.
Ooh, yes.
So Patreon is a way to pay to be a patron to the arts. Mm-hmm. Okay? So we're experimenting with it so far. We've only really put our eggs into one basket. We did one for Nuff Said. We did one for the main company. We did one for Nuff Said. For the main company, we didn't want to be per episode because that's usually how it works. If the artist, whatever the art form is, if it's producing a comic book, producing pictures, producing photography or music, for every month that they produce something, you can say, I'll donate $1.
Yeah.
And every month that you've done it, you'll get $1 from me.
Yeah.
And then you as a creator give them something back, whether it's a thank you or a free CD or
bonus
whatever
audio or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Fun stuff.
So for the company, we said, well, we don't want people to do it by episode because if we put out,
that's too many.
100 episodes
in a
week or a month.
Yeah. A per month thing is way better.
So we just said we'll do it per month, but we don't have our thing set up right. So I don't really talk about that much.
Okay.
For Nuff Said, what we did is we tried the same thing, and then we said, you know what? I don't really think this fits either. So Jack O'Lill and I, who do the main show on Nuff Said, that's another story in and of itself that I won't get into. We have multiple shows on that feed.
Wow.
But on the main show, the three of us do the show. What we did was we said, okay, everybody's interested in this Daredevil show. We could just do our Daredevil show and boom, put it out there. Well, two of our other podcasters said, we were going to do Daredevil. So we took their Daredevil show, we had them do it, we put it on our feed. On Nuff Said, we did our normal Nuff Said, and then at the end, we put a little 5-minute chunk of us talking about Daredevil saying, listen to the rest of this on Patreon if you want to subscribe. We didn't want to hold it from the audience. You can still get your Daredevil content.
Yeah.
But if you want to hear the three of us barely talk about Daredevil, because frankly, we did one episode that was almost entirely about Benny Hill.
I love Benny Hill.
Yeah, see, you know what? We're not going to fall into that rabbit hole because there's only so much time we have. But we do that. We do our thing on there. And it's for the patrons. Right now we have 3. Okay? We haven't been super aggressive with it. But
you got to
know
start
what?
somewhere, though. Yeah.
We love it.
Yeah.
And the 3 people that listen, we get great responses from them. It's talk about building community.
Would you
They write to
recommend
us, and
someone
it's
4
great.
months in? Like, at what point do you do a Patreon?
Why not do it now?
Okay. Yeah.
Why not do it now? Bree, you should do one now. Paul, you should do one now.
Yeah, everyone.
Scott,
you could do it
should
for
one
your
now.
artwork.
Scott, you should do one now.
This would go. Her artwork
Israel,
would
you
be
shouldn't
great
do one.
on Patreon. Her
Yeah.
stuff would be really good on Patreon. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost you anything. It's just a way, it's just another avenue to reach out to community because the community there will talk to you. And that's the answer to your question.
Yeah.
Get into a situation where the community talks to you and you talk to that community.
Wow, way to bring it all back
you
around.
respect them and you talk to them.
Yeah, no, of course. That's what
I am
that's
so
what we're in it
eternally
for.
grateful that anybody listens to one word we say.
Sure.
The first month we did it, we went out to dinner because we hit 100 listens in the month. 100 listens
In the month. Nice.
Yeah, we went out to dinner. We celebrated. It was Molly
Yeah,
Martha.
it's a
and I was like,
milestone. It's a
we
milestone.
couldn't believe 100 people
Sure.
listened to us talking about
Isn't
Under
that
the
great,
Dome.
though? It's a great feeling.
It is, and now we do like 1,000 a day.
Yeah, wow.
And we're so. I mean, it's like we like want to cry when we talk about that.
Wow, that's
it's
great.
amazing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I mean, well, thank you for inviting me down here and letting me pick your brain. Like, it was been
Where can
very
they
helpful.
find your stuff? Give
You-
them the name again. Tell them the website, all that
Listen,
social media stuff.
jockandnerd.com for all the links. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Player FM. You can find us on Twitter at Jock and Nerdcast and Facebook.com/jockandnerd. Now, if you go to iTunes, if you go to jockandnerd.com/review, it'll take you right to our iTunes page. You can subscribe. And you'll notice the little red E there. So the show works a little blue. Just a caveat for people who want to check it out. But we're having a lot of fun, and hopefully it comes across in our shows. Like, I'm just excited to record all the time. As soon as I'm done, I just want to do another one.
Excellent.
I love it. Thank you so much for
All
having
right.
me here.
Thank you so much,
All right,
Imran.
thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Blue Box. That is it for this part of the show. Thank you, Meerkat. Stay tuned. Thanks, Imran.
No problem. Thank you.